Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of the Two Fish at the Table Poker podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Legend Been One on PokerStars.
And I'm your other host, East Coast Sam on PokerStars. When PokerStars is working, that is.
Very true. And, because we're doing a unique sort of episode this time around, I'm going to be kind of interviewing Sam. So, really, it's kind of a grilled fish podcast episode today.
Yeah, I prefer salmon personally, Sam. But yeah, this is a special episode. Ben came up with this idea for this format. So Ben has some news stories in the poker world that I may or may not be familiar with, and he's going to ask me my opinion on them, and obviously state his opinion. This will be back and forth, and we both sort of pride ourselves in this podcast on having a back and forth between the two of us and not interrupting each other and getting into hyperbolics or whatever. So this will be an example of that.
Yeah, so first on my sort of talking point list here is the finalized release schedule for the World Series of Poker in Paradise. They have the roster of events that have come out, and this is happening on December 3rd and up until December 14th at Atlantis Paradise Island in the Bahamas. And looking at this roster of events here, it's a mixture of mostly just no-limit hold'em and PLO with Sam. And as someone who we've talked about the World Series of Poker in Las Vegas so much, what would you sort of be looking for in this sort of first foray into this new branching out of the brand?
Yeah, so I didn't actually know this event existed. So this is the first time I'm hearing from it for you, Ben. Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, I really like mixed games. I like 8-game mix. I like horse. I like even mixed hold'em, Omaha events, which aren't on PokerStars anymore, unfortunately. None of those are really. There's a couple horse sit and goes. That's about it. So yeah, I mean, it's it's kind of a shame that they weren't able to do other events. But obviously, if you're starting a new branch of the World Series of Poker, it makes sense to start with the events Hold'em and Omaha that people really like to play. Do they have limit Hold'em? Like, what exactly are these different events?
So I'll just quickly go through the entire list of events here. December 3rd is the $1,500 Mystery Millions event, which we can imagine it falls in line with the Mystery Millions events of the last couple of years in America. Then you have the Millionaire Maker in Paradise event, which is a $1,500, just like the Millionaire Maker in the United States here. Then you have the GG Million High Roller Championship, a $25,000 entry event. So one of the higher buy-in events here. Then we have the mini main event for $1,000, the High Roller PLO 25K event, the six-handed 3K no limit hold'em event, the 50K Super High Roller no limit hold'em event, the online Mystery Bounty PLO tournament for $2,000 to buy in.
Mm-hmm.
There's the $100,000 Ultra High Roller no limit hold'em events. So you have the High Roller, Super High Roller, and the Ultra High Roller. So interesting naming there. Then you have the 5K Main Events Championship, which I'm surprised not 10K, but whatever. Then you have this $800 Flip and Go tournament. And then the $1,000 online no limit hold'em freeze out, so one buy-in, no rebuys allowed event. The 10K PLO Omaha Championship event, the $2,000 The Closer Turbo Bounty tournament, and then lastly a six-handed 10K no limit hold'em event.
All right, I mean, that's a pretty good mixture of events, I think. It's a shame that there isn't a mixed PLO Hold'em event. That'd be kind of fun. But yeah, I mean, as long as, there's good personalities showing up, and I imagine quite a few of the big names are going to go, especially to the Bahamas in December, they'd probably want to go down. And
that's going to tie into one of my next talking points. But no, when I saw this event, I definitely recognized that there was a pretty strong variety of lower buy-in to higher buy-in events. But really, I mean, this strikes me as the kind of circuit of events that appeals to the professional upper class in the poker scene world. So really, I'm not really sure if the lower buy-in events are really all that needed. I mean, maybe I'm not familiar with the population of the Bahamas. I mean, we've talked about like when the main event in Europe was in like Paris or London, how we were surprised by how few locals sort of entered those tournaments to kind of raise the field size. And I can only imagine for the Bahamas, even though this main event is only $5,000, really, I really doubt that this is the kind of event that like average Joe would attend to, unless it's like your one trip to the Bahamas in your life you want to go to, and it's just kind of how you want to raise the quality of the vacation time there. But I don't know. I feel a little bit torn because I mean, I expect top pros to play in this and not much beyond that. So it makes me question maybe how successful this will be in the event they elect to maybe do a 2024 World Series Poker in Paradise going forward.
Yeah, I'd be surprised to see any of these events crack like 1K in terms of participants. I mean, even the smaller buy-in events, it's like you said, I mean, Joe the plumber living in, Tennessee who wants to, sees the World Series of Poker on ESPN and wants to go play the World Series of Poker. He's going to go to Las Vegas. He's not going to go to the Bahamas. It's a bit of a strange choice, but we'll see. I mean, anything can happen. As long as, obviously Negreanu, Hellmuth, all those folks are going to go down there. We'll see what happens, and that might be, is it going to be televised? Have they announced how they're going to do?
I'm not sure. I assume maybe PokerGo might show some of the final tables, but details have not been announced for that yet, so we'll have to wait and see. The one wild card that might boost these fields is the amount of GG Poker satellite qualifiers these events, because again they sent hundreds and hundreds of players into the main event in Las Vegas this past July, so. You never know, because those prize packages can include a buy-in plus plane fare, hotel fare. So there's a little bit of, maybe that might draw in, a decent chunk of average Joes who played, in those small satellite events. But really, it remains to be seen how that will play out in the field sizes.
Yeah, I mean, we're just going to have to see. I mean, it's only 2 months away, so it's not like we're waiting that long. So hopefully it'll be interesting, and, there's a good mixture of big pros, and hopefully, like, again, there is a Joe the plumber, some guy who just rolls in and makes the final table and pulls off a win. That'd be nice. So,
yeah, it's 15 bracelet events, 2 of them being online, so plus or minus maybe 2 pros that we know fairly well, maybe winning a bracelet. I don't know. I know in those first couple of Europe World Series of Poker series, they had some relatively prominent pros like Phil Ivey and Jeff Losandro and etc. Wins from Brazil. So I'm optimistic, but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, Negreanu's had his drought for how long now? I mean, this might be his best opportunity for who knows how long to get a bracelet. So I'm pulling for him.
But then a lot of other players might think the same thing, and therefore, only one of those kind of players can really win a bracelet in any given event. But we'll have to see. But tying into something of the more controversies surrounding the WSOP in Paradise Bahamas, I saw a tweet on Twitter, or X, I'm gonna call it Twitter, I don't care what anyone says. And I'm gonna read the caption of this picture. The tweet said, "Wow, seriously, GG Poker?" So this was regarding one of the satellite tournaments for the main event in Bahamas. So surviving players will jump straight into the in the money stage on December 12th. Qualifiers will receive an 11-night stay at the Atlantis Bahamas with a daily free lunch buffet deducted from the prize pool. So the implication being that if you cash in your buffet voucher for your qualifying prize for this online satellite, it's going to detract from the prize pool for the main event.
It's just weird.
Yeah, it's like a very weird penny pinching kind of thing, and this is just one of a few little stories that I've sort of popped about. People like reading the fine print at Atlantis Bahamas, and sort of like little things that just almost seem disrespectful to the players, because you have to imagine, you're flying all the way to the Bahamas, and it's like they're calling it paradise, and you don't want to be wondering, why am I being charged $500 for a daily buffet when I can probably spend a fraction of that and through other means, and then that's coming out of the prize pool. And if all these players, I mean, I'm sure if you told someone, here, you want $500 cash, or do you want $500 of a buffet voucher for in the Bahamas, they took the cash any time. So it's almost tone deaf corporate nonsense when it comes to some of these fine details that we're reading about as we approach this event.
Yeah, that's just strange. I mean, I know of the Atlantis Resort as being, very high class resort, and they have water slides through shark tanks or whatever. It's like very premium. So to do weird penny pinching stuff like that is, I mean, it must have been done with the casino's approval if they're having the food buffet be in there. That's just strange. I mean, yeah, again, Negreanu will be able to pay for his own lunches. Hellmuth will be able to pay for his own lunches. But again, a Joe a random Joe in Tennessee who wants to play the WSOP hearing about this, I think is going to be less encouraged from doing it. So it's just very strange.
Yeah, especially you have to remember this is not regarding like Negroni or Helmet. This is about average Joe. They won like an $80 satellite tournament. They win this big prize package, and then you're looking through all these fine print details, and you're just like, what? And so there is an option for these players to take like just the cash value of the prize versus putting it into the paid channel to get the setup in the Bahamas. So you have to wonder maybe that's going to be less than stellar attendance going forward into the actual tournament with that prize structure.
Yeah, I mean, you said it was tone deaf. That sums it up. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. It just makes you look cheap. It makes you look weird. I mean, just
especially when this is kind of version 1.0 of a brand new venture for the brand, and you really need to be looking out for every possible angle for this to succeed, and at the same time watching out for every possible detail that can make it not succeed. So
yeah,
something I'm worried about here. Moving on to more honest topic here, we actually had a comment on our YouTube channel here after I announced our episode that we're recording right now from this guy named GWOAT, GWOAT. Hey guys, I just had a great week. I went through 5 satellite tournaments starting at 1 cent, and made it to the Sunday Millions next weekend. Will be the biggest tournament of my life. Thank you for sharing that with us. Hopefully you did okay. This is the required shout out for that comment, even though it doesn't quite relate to anything that we've said or done. But good luck to you, and hopefully you'll update us in the future of how you did on that.
Yeah, spin it up. Good luck. See how this goes.
But regarding other social media responses, I recently posted a tweet regarding the one drop, comparing it to when they've been announcing the players that will be participating in the big one for one drop 2023. How I compared it to the Smash Bros character announcements Nintendo did years ago, and I got reposted by the All In for One Drop Twitter account. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, you did tell me about that before. Yeah, that was very cool. It's nice that, announcing, just envisioning, like a little blurb of like Phil Hellmuth, like at a poker table, and he turns toward the camera dramatically. It's like, introducing Phil Hellmuth flashes up on the screen. Like, it's great.
Yeah. Ironically, they haven't announced too many more players yet for that tournament, but hopefully as we get into more closer to the tournament date, we'll know more of the field. Hopefully, we'll have a good turnout because as I've said before, the one drop every iteration they've had fewer players than the year before, so you have to wonder if maybe that is just kind of dying out the appeal of that kind of tournament is not pinning out as well as it could have.
Yeah, as long as they get, I think, at least 3 full tables, I think you can call it a good success. And again, just have good action too. I mean, the first one drop was just so much fun. Everybody there was having fun, and it was almost like a weird sort of like backroom cash game instead of a tournament for $18 million. So hopefully it'll be fun.
Next talking point here, we have a new all-time leader in World Series of Poker circuit rings. Mr. Ari Engel won his 16th ring and now leapfrogs Maurice Hawkins, who has 15 for the all-time list. And I ask you, Sam, if you, both as a just kind of average poker Joe like me, or if you were, a more professional player or recreational player, what would you equate the equivalence of how many World Series of Poker rings to one bracelet?
That's a good question. I mean, I would have to know more about sort of the competitive field of each sort of ring in comparison to each bracelet. Obviously, like again, field size plays a role. Obviously, variance plays a big role in terms of how many tournaments you win. I mean, you won 16 tournaments for, imagine a sizable amount of money. And I know that the circuit is largely about grinders and sort of, professional poker players and semi-professionals, just like the WSOP is. But kind of a different sort of, I'm not saying of a different caliber in terms of a bad sense, but I mean just in terms of access to money, bankrolls, time committed to the game, how you developed your skills. A lot, maybe you don't have access to solvers, you've sort of learned skills more through cash games and playing smaller stakes tournaments and building up that way. So I don't know. I mean, I'll just say like I would rather have a bracelet because a bracelet's more prestigious, but let's just say like 4-1, 4 rings to 1 bracelet. I don't know.
Because if you remember, ESPN back in 05, they aired some of the circuit events as sort of a precursor to the main event during their production of poker content back then. And, you had players like Jen Harmon, Chris Ferguson, just in those fields. It wasn't like this was just some throwaway local New Orleans poker players playing the New Orleans tournament or whatever. So these were real tournaments, and again we're talking buy-ins maybe in the high hundreds, low like below $2,000, between maybe like $600 and $2,000. And because there are certain events that are now in that sort of small buy-in realm there, I don't think that it's a little bit unfair to compare, I think, because now the buy-ins are very comparable for a lot of the bracelet events, and they've increased the number of bracelet events just year over year. So to your point of 4, I might even go like 2.5.
Yeah.
Just because the only difference really being that the World Series Poker bracelets take place in Las Vegas, Paris, Las Vegas, the Rio, etc. And you're traveling around the country to explore these events, and it's still poker, it's still the brand, and so I think 2.5 would be where I'd go.
Yeah, 4 was just a number I threw out there. 2.5. It doesn't. You want a poker tournament. You've won a big prize. You're obviously passionate about the game, and you're still in there. 16 rings is a great accomplishment.
Absolutely. Moving on to something I saw in Poker News recently: the unveiling of Pokerstars virtual reality, as far as a VR game on those VR headsets. I was curious, Sam, does this make sense to you at all? Or is this something, let's take out the motion sickness not entirely. Would this have ever appealed to you at any point in time?
Absolutely not. Do I have to say anything else? I mean, I think it's a like, I'm trying to just envision how it works. Like, is it like you have your hands out like this, and like based on how you move your hands, like are there like VR cards or something in your headset, and you like flip them up like this and you can actually see them in the headset? Like, how does this work?
So there's actually there's one large sort of game app program, whatever, and so there is an option for no headset required, just visual on the PC, or you can put on one of those PC headsets, the MetaQuest or whatever, and it's just more like I think you should focus more on the visual side of things. So a lot of these VR headsets just kind of have these little like hand weird controller things. But it's not quite, you're not using your hands.
Oh, okay.
It's like the almost like the switch the Joy Cons. You kind of have like that. You have the triggers for like index finger simulation, stuff like that. Just kind of compared to your experience playing Party Poker, PokerStars, do you really think that PokerStars VR is really a viable option? Do you think?
No. Why not just use your computer? I don't get it. I'm not on, as you can probably tell from my demonstration of like holding my hands out like this, like I'm not on board with VR at all. Yeah, it gives me motion sickness. I don't think the graphics look very good. I don't want to, like, I want to just sit here and kind of use my controller like this or type on a keyboard. I don't want to, have to like run around a room in order to have this experience. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine Mike Matusow playing VR poker? Like, that would just be hilarious.
No, I haven't had the greatest VR experience. I get very usually motion sick, and so if motion sick was taken out, then you don't really need to play on VR on the purpose of PokerStars. I can see the merits of like maybe like a separate like a video game where you play a poker player, it's like a story mode or something, and you're like it's just part of the atmosphere of the story and the game. But as far as I feel like with poker on the computer, you want to minimize your sensory overload because you're staring at a computer for hours at a time, and so that's just gonna throw gasoline on the fire if you're doing that from that setup there.
Yeah, and it's like just timing tells would be different and betting tells would be different. Like, it's just, I don't like this. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. That sounds good. Moving on to another story, there was a hand at the EPT in Cyprus where cards were retrieved from the muck. So I'll break it down for you. So there's two players I've never heard of before, Meridian Van Urgi and Man Al Hashem were in a hand. There was an all-in and a call. The board was 3-2-8-7 Jack with 3 hearts on the board. One player had a pair of kings, and the other player had had kings, and the other guy thought it was King Jack of hearts, but it was the 2 red kings. And so his cards, he mucked his cards on the top of the muck, where they were easily retrievable. And he told the foreman what his hand was, and lo and behold, top of the deck of the muck, those are the 2 cards. So at that point, the floor was called, and the cards were retrieved. The deuces for a set of 2s. and so he was in fact able to claim the pot with the winning hand of three twos. And so I ask you, Sam, when it comes to mucking your cards, would you say that the idea of putting your cards in any part of the muck, is that the point of no return, or do you think this was the right ruling?
Well, I'm immediately reminded of that hand from I can't remember which main event, '08, where it was a French woman who had pocket aces and they went into the muck. I'm immediately obviously reminded of that hand. And they did try to make an effort to retrieve her cards from the muck, and they just couldn't find them. So she lost the pot. And then obviously correct noise with his mucked hand. I mean, yeah, I like the idea of doing that for a player. I mean, retrieving cards from the muck and all that. But I mean, on the other hand, it's like you as a player have to make sure that you know what the cards are on the board, what your opponent's hand is. It's your responsibility to look closely and read the situation and know what's going on. So, I'm of two minds on this. I don't quite have a clear opinion on it, I'd say.
Yeah, there are a few factors I really think about. One is this is an all-in and call. I mean, I feel
Yeah.
like some tournaments they force players to have all cards be tabled regardless,
Right.
and so this obviously was determined when that was not a rule. But that's a good reason why that rule should exist, so that these situations could never happen. Now, if a player like miscalls their hand, then I think unmucking cards is totally fine because that's sort of just a violation of sort of the rules just blatantly. If a player was like at the very far edge of the table and they can barely see the cards, or maybe they don't have their glass or something, and they just see like shapes and colors and they don't know what. Okay, a little bit, but in this case, it was. I think that if you muck your cards, it should kind of be over, and then you put rules in place to ensure that that does not happen unless it's just sort of ironclad, no ambiguity to the outcome of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I would lean more toward if you muck the hand, it's over. But in the case of the French woman, like the dealer took her cards, and so that was, and then Karaknoy just was effing around, so to speak. Yeah, I mean, I lean more toward if you muck your hand, that's it, it's over. It doesn't matter what the situation is. But
Mhm.
yeah, given that it was an all-in situation, I would lean more toward the cards can be exposed. The action can be revealed. So I'm uncomfortable with it.
Okay. Moving on, this week we had the 100K Super High Roller Bowl PLO tournament. Of just 38 players actually. So Negreanu had sent a tweet out that he mistakenly thought there'd be over 60 players, and there were lucky to almost crack 40 with this apparently. And I ask you, with tournaments, no limit hold'em was kind of our bread and butter as poker fans growing up, but even now it still kind of is. But compared to Hold'em, where do you see the entertainment value is in PLO? And does it suffer for you because you were kind of brought up the first wave of Hold'em, or do you feel like it just depends on who's in the field, or what's sort of your take on your interest in PLO on TV, for example?
No, I like PLO perfectly fine. I don't mind watching it at all. I mean, I like playing it too. There's obviously extra factor involved when you can only use two cards in your 4-card hand, and you have to just run more calculations. And obviously, if the second nut straight loses so many times to the nut straight, I did manage to watch a little bit of the event, and that happened like 5 times. Just scourge of PLO is that you can't trust your instincts, you can't trust anything when you've got the second nuts. No, I like PLO a lot. I like watching, any poker on TV. I really like dealer's choice. I like seeing all the different games that these players are picking and what the strategy goes in. When do you pick PLO? When do you pick Raz? When do you pick Churchill? When do you pick, any of these hands, any of these games, based on your stack size, based on who else is at the table, based on your own knowledge about these games. I like stuff like that. So yeah, I don't mind. I enjoyed watching the PLO, and I can only see a little bit of it. I don't know who won. But it was fun.
Yeah, and so, Negreanu ended up bubbling the event in eighth place, so get paid. And there was a very lengthy three-way battle for the last three spots. There was Stephen Chidwick, Jared Blesnick, and Isaac Caxton trying to follow up his Super High Roller Bowl, another Hold'em win. And after a very lengthy final table, we had Blesnick take it down with the chip lead changing so many times when the final three. So a player that Mike Nowitzki has a lot of respect for, who both of them made very deep runs in that 2016 main event 7 years ago. And so there was also kind of some buzz when Blesnik spent some of his time extensions trying to open some sports cards at the table. It was a pretty weird moment. And I ask you, with time extensions, what would be your strategy with time extensions? Would you like deliberately save one just to sort of be protective, or would you sort of just, if a situation calls for it, you don't need to think about the future, you need to think about the moment, or how would you space out your usage of those?
It depends on what the time extensions, like how long each time extension is, what the time I need to think is. I mean, generally, I'm able to make decisions because I've played so much online poker, and the time bank in online poker is 15 seconds, which is a lot shorter than it is in live poker. So I've sort of trained myself to think of things a little bit quickly. But yeah, I mean, I would try to be conservative with them because again, you never know. One hand might be tricky, but then the next hand might be even trickier. So you never know when these time extensions are. I would not be wasting my time extensions on, I need 15 seconds to open this water bottle. It's just do it.
And so, as a follow-up to the Super High Roller Bowl PLO, and also to a lesser extent the PokerGo No Limit Hold'em Tour, we have the PokerGo PLO series coming up. And I have to ask you, do you really care about this event? I've talked about how it kind of felt like they invented their own, like, and league, not league so much, but like just their own series for PokerGo. And I wonder, now that it's not even No Limit Hold'em, do you still care about it, or is it kind of in that, comparing NFL to college football or NFL to XFL, or would you draw that comparison for yourself?
Yeah, if it's entertaining, I'll watch it. If it's not entertaining, I won't watch it. I don't mind PokerGo coming up with their own tournaments and stuff. Like, you got to make content. It's you gotta justify the monthly prices, the yearly prices, the subscription. So I don't mind it as long as it's entertaining, as long as you again have a good mixture of players. I'd like to see again more average Joes. If they were doing satellite tournaments and there's 8 all-star players and then one sort of average Joe, I think that'd be kind of nice. Or just average Joes, entertaining average Joes playing poker or whatever.
But I ask you then, just as sort of a litmus test here, if I told you Jamie Gold, Sam, next week he'll win a bracelet, or next week he'll win a PokerGo Tour series event, which one would you root for more to happen?
The bracelet.
So that's what I'm getting at. So it's easy to say that, but for me, again, if I say the bracelet, I'd rather pick that. Then that kind of begs the question, are you valuing that series as much as you might something else from the World Series of Poker? So that's my.
Of course, I don't value it more than the World Series of Poker, but I'm just saying, like, it's entertainment,
Moving on to, I was looking into some of the Hustler Live stuff, and there was a trash talk hand between Jungleman and Nick Airball. And it really got me thinking. Now, I'm very curious about your opinion. What trash talk should be allowed in poker?
I think just anything short of personal insults. I mean, calling players like an idiot, calling players stupid, obviously like making fun of the way somebody looks, or making an offensive joke to a woman or something. Like, obviously that's not okay, but like, just jabbing with each other, needling with each other, I think is fine. I guess, yeah, I mean, I think it just kind of depends on the situation. I mean, there's definitely certain things that you should not be crossing, make fun of the way somebody looks, whatever. But, jabbing with each other is fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, Nick Airball, he's definitely one of the more well-known Hustler live stream players. And, his antics are both laughed at and also, criticized. So that's our take. I guess for my take on the trash talk thing, it really depends on, is it mutual?
Yeah.
I think back to Phil Hellmuth against Tobias Eric Pearson,
Yeah.
where it was, Hellmuth trying to act as if Pearson is out of line when really it's a relatively back and forth sort of A to B to Z to D to the back and forth, tennis versus, one-sided. So, and again, we talked about stuff like Kasu for Keating or this Fondiari's sort of ribbing of Helmut. There's so many different flavors that trash talk can come in. And again, the term trash talk is a little bit vague too, because really like saying, oh, you're a bad player. I mean, I guess that's not personal, but it's also, it comes across kind of playground style level of insult. So that's why people don't usually rely on those phrases. They try to be a bit more pointed or, more swearing at the table. So and again, I think it just kind of comes down to what is in the rules of that tournament or that program or that structure. If they say, free for all, say whatever you want, then you shouldn't be playing if you're within skin and you won't be able to handle it.
Yeah, again, I mean, I feel like I think I've said this before, but the more talk at the table, the better. So if that means that sometimes things get a little heated, I think that's fine. But I mean, everybody talks about how boring the game is. Everybody talks about how everybody just sits there with their headphones and their sunglasses and blah blah blah. You've heard all complaints about tournament poker for the last 10 years now. And then, a trash talker comes along and everyone goes, "No, that's not okay." If keeping the game entertaining means that there's some trash talk in there, I'm all for it.
One of the this next talking point for me right now is probably the one I'm most excited to talk to you about. The big game returns.
Oh, I didn't know this.
So the PokerStars is going to be doing streaming some North American Poker Tour streams, and as part of that, they're reviving the big game in what is supposed to be, according to Poker News, very similar to the original iteration over a decade ago, which we discussed at length with our boy Ernest Wiggins. So what are your thoughts on what would you like to see out of a season 3 from that program's return?
Well, obviously Ernest Wiggins coming back and screwing over Phil Hellmuth's soul would be nice. Yeah, I mean that format worked really well. Again, have a bunch of entertaining players, and then one new guy, one sort of fresh face, to can interact with these people and give good banter, just like Ernest Wiggins did. More Tony G and Phil Hellmuth action is always great. I mean, talk about trash talk, am I right? I mean, that's terrific. Yeah, just I like this. Let's see how season 3 would go. Let's, not keep it too flashy, not too over the top. Don't distract with weird segments or anything. Just keep it focused on the game and the conversation amongst the players.
Yeah, and hey, if it's viable for us, we could find a way to review it in the future. Just
Yeah.
sort of to keep a bit. And again, I agree with everything you said. I really dug the format back when we did our Poker Cash Games episode. Hopefully maybe I mean, Joe Stapleton was pretty controlled in that commentator booth role back then. I am curious who they would have in the booth for this. Would they do a rotating basis? Would they stick to the same 2 guys in the booth each time? I'd be very curious. Obviously, I talked about how much I love Hellmuth and Esfandiari in the booth, but I also want them in the game. So it's kind of I'm not sure which one I'd rather have if I could pick one. But I would imagine the structure you can probably keep the same since they are bringing back the NAPT, the whole allure of an NAPT passport is technically could be a prize again. So they're putting the pieces together to really kind of maybe revive some history now that we've kind of not recovered from, but kind of moved on from the online poker controversies of years before.
Well, if anybody's looking for 2 commentators who want to comment on the big game, Ben and I would love to do it. But yeah, I mean, a passport would be fine. I mean, a spot to the main event would be cool. There's a lot of other things you can do beside that, or just cash. I mean, $50,000 is a lot of money for somebody like me, somebody like you. So yeah, I mean, you could just have the cash too.
Moving on, so we've touched on PokerStars a couple times already, but I'm very curious. With all the iterations of PokerStars that we've been through, all the changes, how would you redesign it for yourself to make it the best possible application for you to play poker online?
Well, first and foremost, I would want PokerStars to work on my computer because I'm on this MacBook I'm using right now. I got it like 7 years ago. It's still working. The battery's a little wonky, but whatever. And I can't update the iOS anymore, so PokerStars no longer works on this. So hopefully I can do this in time for the Mind Sport Olympiad. So that's the first thing, just have PokerStars work, period. And then second, I mean, again, just have more varied events. I mean, you have the capacity to run 8-game mix. You have the capacity to run all these different forms of Omaha, all these different forms of Hold'em, and then obviously Raz and all these other games. I think people want to play these games, bring them back into the sit and goes, bring them back into the tournaments on a regular basis. Yeah, I mean, that's really just, it's just Hold'em and Omaha, and then like a horse event here and there. The buy-in structure is fine. We do obviously play money, but the buy-in structure is fine. I imagine the buy-in structure for real cash is fine. It's just have more variety, have more refreshments on there.
Yeah, I think to clarify to our listeners here, the last couple of years, it always seemed like every update to the software online, they would restrict or they would get rid of certain play money tournaments, or just the options for different games or mixed games. So you used to be able to see like every day you'd see like just 7 Raz 8-game mix, don't hold on PLO, blah, blah, blah. And now it's just like maybe only like 3 or 4 of those games are readily available at any given time compared to maybe like upwards of 10. So even, and I understand it's play money, I understand, but you're still probably telling your stockholders we have this many players playing every day. So, I mean, you're only hurting yourself probably.
Yeah, and people buy play money chips for some reason, and they do all sorts of stuff. And then there's all the other modes. Like there's like the flash sit and go thing. That's okay. It's nothing special. But like the other mode, like the soccer mode they have, where it's like it starts at like was it like 1K and then it goes to like 5K.
I have no idea what that is.
All of them.
Doesn't make
And
sense.
then yeah, there's like a bunch of other like silly games. Like isn't there one like I think it's in the cash games section where it's like you can either fold or go all in or something. Did you play this mode?
I never played that, but again, all the gimmicks I never really cared for. There was one mode a while ago where you could like get like superpowers, like in the middle of the game, you could like zap a card and get rid of it. It was kind of bizarre. I mean, I feel that's the kind of game you play like a board game for friends, not online poker. But yeah, again, I'm not a fan of the gimmicky stuff on PokerStars. Obviously, when it works, I like to play on it, but not for me. I have the same kind of computer as you, basically. And so, yeah, just more variety. I mean, there's no. I imagine the cost to run the thing is the same, whether it's you're running 10 tables of one game or another one, because it's just running automatically, basically. So it doesn't make sense to me why they would change it.
Exactly.
And that kind of covers my roster of talking points here. So I know that we sort of worked out a deal where I would kind of head the prep work for one episode, and then there was something that you were very passionate about that you wanted to cover next time. Why don't you tell me what's that going to be about?
Well, this is something that we mentioned briefly in our analysis of poker vloggers and YouTube vloggers. But I wanted to tackle the curious case of Mike Postle, also known as the Crotch Man. Yeah, so next episode, we're going to be looking at Joey Ingram's investigation streams into Mike Postle. I think that's the best way to sort of look at the case and talk about it in detail, because there's hours and hours and hours of material that we could look at. We could just be sitting through, random Stones Casino hands, but he focuses on the most interesting hands. So we're going to be tackling that next time, whenever that will be. We'll try to get it as soon as we can, but yeah.
And again, so we're always trying to mix things up here on our whole little podcast here. We've had, again, a continued viewership of our fans. We always appreciate everyone who listens to our ramblings every time they log into YouTube. If you have any suggestions for things you want us to review, to watch, talk about, let us know in the comments section. If you want to be a part of an episode as an interviewee or as a, just, something available if you ask us questions or whatever, any sort of integration of our content, let us know. We're happy to include you. And as always, guys, enjoy your poker, enjoy your TV, enjoy your poker on TV.
Take care, everyone. Make sure to have your phones not out on the table, like Mike Postle.
Oh, yeah, they get it.